pretty certain that there were households who had good cash flow during the health crisis. I mean, like, there are those that had their rent paused together with student loan payments. I mean, who wouldn't be able to save at that point, right? But just like the good times, it all had to end. But don't worry, because the Biden administration's all over the student loan problem. Check this out.
It's the thought on many borrowers' minds. Student loan payments restarting soon.
It's definitely something I've been a bit worried about. I'm not completely sure. Just gonna try to put money aside where I can.
Leslie Villarino has federal student loans and thinks it'll add up to a few $100s a month.
Gonna try to limit it as much as I can because obviously it's a big expense on top of rent and other stuff.
There are options to help manage payments, including the SAVE plan, which the Department of Education says provides the lowest monthly payments of any income-driven repayment plan available to nearly all student borrowers. Here's how it works. The SAVE plan calculates your monthly payment amount based on your income and family size. So, for example, starting this summer, if you're making $32,800 a year or less, which is about $15 an hour, your monthly payment will be $0. If you're making more, officials say you'll save at least $1,000 a year compared to other plans.
Do any of you guys think that some of these people used what money they did have on stuff that they didn't need? I mean, come on, folks, let's be real here. The numbers don't lie, and from what I saw with this recent survey, 55%, which is more than half of students, think that they're financially unprepared. Now, that's a fancy way of saying that they can't afford something, but yeah, they're financially unprepared for these payments to pick back up again. Crazy. And since we're already on the topic of stuff that we need to pay for, there are countless rental properties with people in them that are literally like waking up to the cold reality of life. Rent is not free, and it's now time to pay up.
This is a 3-day eviction notice.
Susie Rosman's rattled by reality. The bill always comes due.
How much do you owe in back rent?
$9,000.
Can you pay that back?
Slowly, but not how they want it. So, no.
Rosman got breast cancer, lost her teaching job, fell behind 8 months on her rent. Just in Los Angeles, thousands of tenants had rent waived during the first 19 months of the pandemic. Many owe a small fortune. LA's typical rent, nearly $3,000 a month, a 75% jump since the pandemic began. And the eviction moratorium on back rent has expired.
Now, Susie's situation is not a remote case. And yeah, I know that there's a lot of renters who were also part of layoffs and such, and this is the truth that we have to face again. It doesn't mean that you're exempted from paying your dues. And while there's a high probability, or no, it's probably a sure thing that homelessness has spiked over there given, some of the tenants. And I'm not saying like it's all of the tenants, but there are some, can't emphasize that term enough, all right? There are some renters who didn't pay rent for up to 18 months and they have nothing to show for it. I mean, can you believe that? You know what I can't believe? That you've made it this far into the video without liking it or even subscribing to the channel. What's up with that? But I'll tell you what, now's the time where you can do both. Go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel. But now that we're done with payments that need to be made, let's go and talk about the global change that's taken over, and that is remote work. Now, I've heard of so many of my friends talk about it during the health crisis, basically saying like, if we can work from home during a pandemic, then we should be allowed to work when it's gone, right? And well, it's hard to argue with that logic, but now we're kind of past that entire phase where we're forced to stay indoors. And well, more companies are telling their employees that, again, the good times are over. It's kind of hard to think that the pandemic was the good times, because it really didn't seem like the good times during that time. But anyway, so they're saying, employers are saying that the good times are over and that they need to report back into the office because they're still paying for this office space. So even though it's their problem, they want you to just sit your butt in that chair inside the office that they're paying for. Don't even make sense to me. I mean, you got to pay for it regardless. But here's what companies didn't see. And I want you guys to think about this. Productivity, meaning like how much somebody actually gets done during a specific time, all right? So productivity is down across the board and people are just up and leaving the company if they're gonna take away this hybrid situation. Basically, people are saying, hey, if you want me to come back in the office, I quit, I'm out. And so that's where basically you can choose whether to show up or not show up at all if you have a hybrid work situation. Now, I personally think that that's kind of like the lesser of the two evils for many employees. And how great is it to just kind of wake up and sit in your office chair and just log in to work for 5 minutes before you need to?
Well, the push by employers to bring workers back into the office may be having a reverse effect. A new survey finds some hybrid workers would rather leave their jobs and give up flexible schedules. That's especially true on Wall Street, where a recent survey found 1 in 2 professional investors were willing to quit their jobs if their managers required them to spend more time in the office. The trend is having an impact on hiring practices, company growth, and more. Joining us now is Bloomberg reporter Jo Constance. She is the co-author of a recent article on the subject in Bloomberg News. So, Jo, tell us, how has company growth been impacted overall by the fact that many workers would prefer to work remotely or at least have a hybrid schedule?
Right. So we have new data out just this week that looked at how recruitment was impacted by the number of days in the office companies are requiring. And it's showing that companies that require more days in the office are growing at a slower rate, especially those companies that require 5 days in the office. And so that is just some preliminary evidence to show that again, workers really value their flexibility that they got during the pandemic, and that's just continuing.
Like, who wants to drive 60 minutes one way to go to work when you could just walk down the hallway and just start working instead? Less gas money wasted, less miles on your car, wear and tear. You get 2 hours round trip back in your life to do what you want. But that was the freedom that people felt. No commute, no need to waste money on gas. Electricity went up just a little bit, but it was a worthy sacrifice for a few extra hours of sleep and a reduced gas bill. Was it worth the sacrifice? It's like I'm talking about Greek mythology here or something, right? But you guys get it, right? Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you do, because a survey found that 76% of employees were ready to apply somewhere else if flexible work schedules were removed. But work can be tricky to find sometimes, huh? Well, that is if we're talking about a job that paid us enough. Now, that reminds me, do you think you're paid enough for what you're doing right now? Now, you gotta think, are there enough good jobs for everybody? Good paying jobs. And I'm not talking about jobs that won't even get you through the month. How about police work? Now, I'm kind of sure some places have better than most wages, right? Now, you would think that benefits should be great too. But what if, and this is the controversial question for today, what if those federal government jobs were provided to, let's just say, illegal immigrants?
This law requires that immigrants be legally authorized to work under federal law. The bill's sponsor called it a natural progression now that some undocumented immigrants can become healthcare workers and military members. However, it's been highly criticized by Republicans and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police. The FOP issued a statement earlier this month ahead of Friday's bill signing. It reads in part, "What message does this legislation send when it allows people who do not have legal status to become the officers of our laws? This is a potential crisis of confidence in law enforcement at a time when our officers need all the public confidence they can get." The organization continued by writing that it does support potential police recruits once their citizenship status is solidified.
There you go. And don't get me wrong. If you got here the right way through all the legal loopholes and all that, then I'm pretty sure that no one would bat an eye if you became a police officer. But for someone who's, for the lack of a better term, kind of snuck in, I think a lot of people would have a slight issue with that, because if that happens, well, then they have to enforce the laws of the United States Constitution. I mean, how does that work, if they didn't follow the law to get in here, but yet they're going to have the right to enforce it? But hey, let me give the last word to you guys. What do you guys think? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And before I go, guys, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out. Appreciate the likes, the subscribes, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.